Welcome to Mommy Mondays with Jem Pinto and Denisha Vargas. I hope you are having a lovely Monday. Today we're gonna be talking about to me I think it's a very interesting topic, and it is married with children and why do things change? So for the most part, a lot of times we see statistically that after you have children, that a lot of people end up either separating or divorcing. And because it's so common, I think it's only right that we just have this conversation of why is it so common? Like what happens after the dynamic changes when children are born to the picture that causes so many people to break apart.
So very interesting.
It is. It really is. How long have you been with Amaury?
So I want to say a little over 10 years. We don't have like an official date or like an
Hmm.
anniversary or like
Yeah.
anything like that. We were like friends for 2 years or so,
Hmm.
and then ended up kind of being I wouldn't say like straight up into a relationship because I don't think that's what it turned into right away.
Hmm.
But once we were together, I could at least say for myself that I I I couldn't really come apart. Like it was just really difficult to like imagine my life without him. It was very strange, but I knew I had a connection, right?
Hmm.
And so it's already been our oldest child together is 8 years old now. So Enzo's 8, and then we have twin girls that are 6. And
So you
so
guys, would you say you guys were together for like what, a couple years before you guys had children?
no, I think that we built our relationship after I ended up pregnant.
Oh, really?
Yes, like yeah, we were seeing each other, but I don't
Hmm.
think it had it well, I say I don't think because we did have conversations of it.
Hmm.
Um and things can get a little tricky, especially that I was working in the clubs, so we were like, we had a club life and
Yeah, I
friends.
know that life.
Yeah, yeah. So, we started off as friends and then we ended up in this entanglement, I guess you could call it. And then I ended up and I ended up pregnant with Enzo actually. And then
Oh.
so he was very honest with me in the beginning and told me he wasn't sure. I knew
Mm.
for a fact that I wanted to be with him, and I knew that I wanted to keep Enzo. I knew it since the second that I knew I was pregnant or that I had the
Mm.
the hunch of it.
Right.
So it was frustrating in the beginning, but I understood it. My husband also has two kids out of the marriage, so before, and
Mm.
the daughter, his daughter's 13, and then his son is 10 years old now. So he was going through that when we were together, so it was genuinely like we were friends for real for a long time before anything turned into anything. So we were friends for 2 years or more.
Oh,
And
wow.
then and then I ended up pregnant with Enzo. And so he basically in the beginning was very honest. He told me he wasn't sure he can offer me a relationship, but that he'll be a father to Enzo, and I agreed. And then we kind of didn't really separate after that. So we've been writing it out.
Wow. Okay. Mine is like completely opposite.
I know, and that's why this is gonna be so interesting
Yeah, I
to me.
know it is. It really is, and that's interesting to me. And I can see that though that like a situation like that where you guys build from that point, which is really admirable because not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It's been shocking me too a little bit, just because how everything started. Um, but honestly, he's one of my best friends, and so I
I
feel
love
like
that.
that genuine care for each other and like how we show up
Right.
for each other might have helped a lot. And being honest too, because I feel like I'm not gonna put up a front. Like I was like, oh, okay, and everything was fine. Like, no,
Right.
suffered through it. It was sad to me because I kind of already knew and kind of already had an idea. It was the first time ever in my life that I ever felt like that. So I was
Mm.
kind of clear on that this was not a normal or like any relationship that I've ever been in. So
I
I
think I
felt
felt the
bad.
same way about Greg. We were actually together for 10 years before we had our first child.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so I think that's what was like a bit of a shock, I think, to both of us after we had children, as far as in like a lot that transpired afterwards and a lot of the friction and changes that occurred. um because for a long time it was just me and him. We met at 23, and I didn't give birth to our first child. I got pregnant at 33, and I gave birth at 34. So really almost like 11 years, if you really want to say, before like the baby was born. And another, there was a shift right there. But we were, because we were together young, we were very much club scene, partying, smoking weed, drinking Hennessy. Like that was that was
And
our life for a long time. You know? So by the time we moved to California, we lived in New York from 23 to 29. And then
wow.
at 29 years old is when we both we moved to California. And our goal was to like get our shit together. You know what I mean? Like we didn't come here to party, so it's like we were like the parents of everybody. So I was like the mom and shit. We were like the people everybody came to for fucking advice and shit. So we were in a very different mental space than the way like New York was just we were acting a fool in New York, yo.
Yeah.
And like just doing the most. And when we came out here, we were really serious about like building a business, building a family. Like that was our goal of coming out here. And we did that. We built a business and everything. Aside from working on our personal careers that we came here for, I was into the arts and acting and writing and all that stuff like that. And he was actually in the music industry. So those were our passions and careers that we pursued aside from building our own business that we had. And then we had decided, it was very planned, our first baby, I will say that. We had to like a detox together. We were just like mentally and spiritually like taking ourselves there,
Mhm.
and
You both prepared for the pregnancy.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Like
Awesome.
we definitely did. And I think I got pregnant like 3 months after we like consciously started, like, you know what I mean, trying to conceive. And the pregnancy was amazing. As far as in the experience, both of us, like it was just amazing, for both of us. It was exciting. It was all that. And then the baby came.
Oh,
And a lot of shit changed. Like I said, we were literally like best friends, always together, hanging out, bugging out. And now this new person came into the picture, and it kind of like shifted where it was like I was literally just focused on the baby. And he was too, don't get me wrong, but it was just like where did my wife go? And things started to change, and things got really hard for us as far as in our relationship, because I was changing and going through what I was going through as far as in this new journey in motherhood that was very it was very different, and also because remember, we're here in California. There was no family. It wasn't like I could drop off to my dad or his mom. You know, like there was no grandparents to drop the baby off to get a moment for yourselves. You know, there was none of that. So it just became where everything was about this baby, and I'm not gonna lie, I lost track of us, not intentionally, but it just happened. You know, I went through a really hard time postpartum, which I talk about in other episodes, but I think that I didn't know the emotional toll that the having a child would have on me. And so because I didn't understand it and I didn't know of it, not like anybody schooled me on it, I didn't have like a mom in my life that, you know, kind of prepped me for this, or I can go to talk about like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this or that. Is this normal, you know? How do I connect back to my husband? Like there was nobody really to talk to about it. So just holding these things in and being in a state of confusion, I think started to disconnect me from myself. And as I started disconnecting from myself, obviously, once I'm not connected to myself, I'm not connected to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that started happening. However, I think it's hard for the partner to even comprehend that, you know, because they're not going through what you're going through as a woman.
Yeah.
They're going through what they're going through as a man. Absolutely. I personally think that men have their own little postpartum, you know, quote journey, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Different than ours, but they do have their own.
Yeah. I think the
And
balance is just overwhelming because it's not just physical. It's actually
it's
we're going
not.
through a spiritual thing. We're going through a mindful thing, like the way our
Yes.
mind works changes. So like we don't even know ourselves anymore after having a baby.
Yes, exactly.
Like we have to go through the process of getting to know ourselves first. And if you have a
Yes.
partner, that can be really tricky because it's like that can seem selfish sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's what happened. I think you know, and you know, for a while, and then the more, you know, children we had after that, which they were planned per se, but they weren't planned, if I, you know what I mean? Like we knew we wanted more. We knew we wanted a second one. But it's like when they came, it was like, oh, wait, not right now, but okay, fine. I thought I need a little bit more time, but okay. So that's what kind of happened with all three. And I think as we had more children, although the love was still there, I think we both started to disconnect from ourselves, which in turn disconnected us. And I think I was more aware of that it wasn't a personal thing. I don't think he was at that level of consciousness to understand it was impersonal, meaning I wasn't disconnecting from him because I didn't love him. You know, I was disconnecting from him because I disconnected from myself, because motherhood took a toll on me that I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was trying to find myself again, it's like, I can't give myself to you and find myself. It just doesn't work like that. Like just the same way I got to love myself before I can love you. And at that point, I don't even love myself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even like myself. I'm hard on myself. I'm confused about what's happening internally inside of me, emotionally, spiritually, just everything. And, you know, now as my son is 7, so figure about 7 years now into parenthood, I think it's now that we're getting somewhat of a grasp on this. And I think that has come with us starting to, or not even starting to, but started to, when we started to focus on our individual healing. Because a lot of these things that are happening after you have children are basically just triggers. So it's like, it felt like I was triggering him and he was triggering me, but he wasn't the root to my trigger, nor was I the root to his trigger. So in the sense of let's say I wasn't giving him obviously the attention that I did before, unconsciously, you know what I mean? that in turn to him, I was neglecting him. Now the neglect is the root, but I'm not the cause of the root of the neglect, if that makes sense. That
Yes.
has to do with childhood stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as I'm not giving this person the attention that they are expecting, right? I'm triggering the wounded child who was also unconsciously neglected by their parent because their parent had to work a lot, which is the case for a lot of children in our last generation, you know, like especially when you're raised by a single parent, where the parent is the sole provider, so they are the ones working so much to provide, so they're not able to be home with their child as much as, you know, children, to me, I think, need to be home with their parents. That's just what I've learned in parenthood. And when that dynamic, because of just life and isn't there, that does affect the child, and it doesn't make the parent a bad person, but there is cause and effect. And when that dynamic occurs, something happens to that child, and it will affect them into their adulthood, and especially after you have children. So I think that was the situation with me, I mean with him. And with me, my triggers were more of, because I didn't have any like female guidance per se. Like I had my dad was there for me so much, and I love that, but he's a man at the end of the day. And you're never gonna get from a man what a woman can give you, because a man is a man and a woman is a woman. There's a reason for that, right? So I think because of that, of me not having that dynamic for most of my childhood, I didn't know or how to tap into my femininity, if that makes sense. So as things became harder for me mentally, I shut down, and I became more hard, because it became now a survival, like coping, and I had to cope, you know what I mean, like a coping mechanism. So I had to protect myself. So the more that he couldn't understand, so it was like he would get upset, then I would feel like that wounded child that was never heard when I try to tell this person, like, yo, I don't know what's happening. I need guidance. I need help. You know what I mean? And this person can't help me because they're just not consciously understanding what I'm saying. So having that with my childhood, I think, was a big trigger for me when he couldn't understand me. You know what I mean? It was like, now I feel alone again, like I felt before. You know what I mean? Like, I thought my mom was supposed to be there for me. I thought my husband is supposed to be there for me. And these are like intricate people in my life that are not there for me. So now I'm just taking everything out on this, not taking it out per se, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this person is feeling the raft of those triggers. And I know that we always say communication is like the key in any relationship, right? And the more that I've dived into this healing journey, and the more that I've dived into getting a better understanding of marriage, of children, the psychology of men and women, the psychology of children, the more that I realize, how can we communicate even properly when we're wounded?
Yes.
We can't. So it's like, dude, me and him had before, like, let's say we had the best communication ever. And suddenly we could not communicate. All we could do is project and react. That was it. Right? Because now that life started really fucking lifing, we didn't know how to communicate because we weren't taught. We didn't even understand what was happening to us. So I think before even we say communication, it's like, first of all, can we talk about, have you healed your inner wounded child? Have you healed any trauma that you probably experienced when you were a child? Because if we're not healing from that, we're never going to get to a common ground where we can literally communicate and listen to each other. Not just react and just respond just to want to say something. Like, in order for you, just the same way when you had like in school reading and comprehension, right? You had to read something and then you had to fucking comprehend it. Right. So if somebody is communicating with you and you don't know how to comprehend that because you don't know how to decipher that without being personal, then all you're gonna do is take it personal.
Yes. Wow.
I know I went on a whole rant there, but
No, that was good. It's true though.
like,
And
so it's like motherfuckers gotta heal first
yeah,
before
and a
you
lot of
even get to
people,
that point to even know how to fucking communicate.
mhm, a lot of people also forget that you kind of gotta understand the person too. Like
You
it's easy
do.
to hear, but to actually picture yourself in that person's shoes is a whole nother like it's a whole nother thing.
It really is. Like I think I was more conscious than he was that of where his stuff was coming from, and I knew it wasn't personal to me. But I don't think for a while, well, I know for a while he didn't see it like that. Like, it was a very personal thing for him. And it's like, it became more of like, you don't love me anymore, you don't want me anymore. And it's like, whoa, 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 it's not even nothing close to that. It's nothing even close to that, you know so I think we have to, in relationships, really, like you said, understand who this person truly is and where they come from and what they've been programmed, how they were raised, because all this will determine who they are as an adult and who they are as a husband and who they are as a wife. Like, all these things are a determining factor in who you become as a person. And at some point, whatever you don't deal with in life will come back to be dealt with. It will surface in different ways. And I think for me, so many things that I pushed to the back burner, so many things that I suffered and I endured as a child, that I use the I'm strong, I got this type of attitude as a way to move forward in life, right? To keep going. I think all that became this stagnant energy just sitting inside of me because I never dealt with it. I never healed from it. I never talked about it. I never communicated correctly about it. I never dissected what effect it had on me as a person, on my decision making, on all these things. And it does. So I think that a lot of times, for the most part, most relationships in general are not even taking the steps to be conscious of where their inner wounds come from. Because for the most part, I think if you take most relationships and you break down their issues, I guarantee you 90% of them shits, or probably more, have nothing to do with each other personally.
Yeah, I agree.
We're just sitting here projecting and projecting. So when you have a child that comes and these different characters, because everybody's a different character, right? Every child is different, so they're their own being, they're their own personality. When all these things come in the mix, your children even can trigger you.
Yeah.
So I think that when children come into play, it becomes hard for couples to actually sit there and take the time to really understand what is happening right now, and that the change that is occurring is not a bad change. It's just a change. And it has to change. It has to change because there is another person in the mix. It can't stay 100% the same, but it
No,
also doesn't have to be bad.
yeah, and if you want any type of growth, you need
Exactly.
you want any type of growth, the change has to happen. So even as a couple, because I find it very interesting, some people or some like young women, they don't realize, which a lot of women will fight me and say, no, that's not it. But let's keep it real. What happens is that the woman's natural urge to have a baby comes in. So a lot of women sometimes get like pets or
Yeah.
like couples get like pets.
Yes, we had
And
one.
which is great, by the way. Like,
Right.
obviously, it's not a baby. let's
Nope.
let's draw the line in the sand very
It
clear.
is
It's not a
not.
baby, but it's a great training for people that want to have a baby, because once that dog starts doing things that are, that it needs to be disciplined, now you guys have to come up with a discipline plan that both of you
Yes.
agree.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's also so interesting because our stories are basically opposites.
Yeah.
But one thing that you mentioned that I thought was so interesting was that you were saying you had a really hard time in the beginning, right? And while I did have a hard time in the beginning, my harder time came later on because then we moved and I was away from my family.
Oh, yeah. And I just gotta tell you just really quickly before you continue. I love um how much of a family you guys like. You guys are a lot of y'all. There's a lot of y'all. And I love that. I love that. Like, there's so many sisters and cousins, and I've always seen that just growing up with you guys in the dance studio. But I love that, and I think that that was big in your life in the beginning, and that makes a huge difference, yo.
So huge, the difference. Like, I promise, like if every mom had a community, things we would be raising like completely different societies,
Oh,
completely different.
absolutely.
Because the amount of relief that you get when you know that, like, you're not doing anything wrong, that you're not a bad person, that
Yes.
like they just when let's go back a little bit because you were saying that you held a lot of things in and stuff like that. So because me and Amani had that situation where he couldn't make any promises to me, um I was, like I told you, I was suffering a little bit on it, but I was also, trying to be realistic and trying to stay, sane for my baby, because I knew I wanted this to be a beautiful experience. And
Yes.
so I was living with my mom at the time throughout I gave birth and everything and was at my mom's place. So that made things a lot, like, it made things better for us because one, I had all the help I needed. So
Yes.
I had community literally within a 5 block radius. I have at least I had 4 to 5 households that I
Oh,
know
it's
that I can,
amazing.
get help from, or that I had people that I can call. And granted, not everybody came all the time, but I knew I had certain people I can talk to when I needed something. So I
Yes.
had all my cousins that lived upstairs. It's a two-family home, and my cousins were living upstairs. So I had
Mm.
literally visitors all the time. I was able to talk about my experience. I was able to show pictures. I was able to explain things. I was able to share the good and the bad. Um, so my cousins were able to see a lot of the things, and I feel like in a way it kept me distracted. It kept me in this
Mhm.
mood where like everything was fine, and I was, just trying to stay mostly sane for the baby. I didn't get affected by no type of like sadness. Yeah, things were a little
Mm.
bit difficult, but I didn't feel like baby blues or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then we had twins. Obviously our relationship was a lot more established at this point. But even though we wanted to live together and stuff, I needed help. So even though I would go to the apartment and I had stuff there, I ended up mostly staying at my mom's because then I went from having one child to having 3 children.
Right. Yeah.
And
Oof.
so our family was growing. It grew really fast. I don't know where. um, and then we started having conversations about the conversations you kind of need to have, like, how would you like to raise your children and all these things. And I grew up in my mom, I hate that, like, an abusive household. Like, I don't think that's
Yeah,
like,
I
my
know.
mom
I
used to
think
whip my butt all the time. But like,
listen,
I
I think we
know
all got our ass whipped. They weren't
yeah,
abusive, but we all
I
got our
feel
asses
like
whipped.
yeah, I feel like it wasn't malicious, and I feel like it was more out of like survivor mode. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I
So
agree.
I did definitely grow up in an environment like that, and my husband totally, it was the opposite. Like, that man never had an argument in his house.
Wow.
And it's not, we, like, like my family didn't argue, but we were
I
very
get it.
open about our feelings. We were very
Yeah.
open. House full of women, like there was just a
Oh
bunch
yeah.
everywhere. So we were very open about our feelings. We were very, we nothing holding back at all. And so it was very interesting to realize, like, he was so calm, and he, like, just having him around me makes me calm.
Hmm.
And I'm not a calm, like, I was the life of the party. Like, you're not,
That's
we
me.
were okay, just so we're clear, my whole family is the life of the party. But I mean, like, I was like the designated bartender of the family. I worked in clubs, so I had a lot of like connections for my cousins to go in clubs and stuff like that. Or restaurants in Washington Heights or in the Bronx. So it was like I went from being that person to not wanting anything to do with outside. Like, and people were just
Yeah.
like, what did this do to you, this motherhood? But Enzo just gave me the urge to just be at home. Like, I wanted to be a homekeeper. I want to be home. I want to be there for my children. I want to give them a bath. I want all the house
Oh,
duties.
yes. I
I
think that
was
was
okay
why
with all of it. Hmm?
I think that was the main reason of why we had build a business, because I kept saying like I want to be home with my children.
Yeah.
So as we
And I
planned,
didn't
like
know
that was the goal.
and I didn't know how much I wanted that until I put Enzo in school way too early.
Mm.
And that's when I realized, like, when I'm going in the schools and I see, anyways. So then we actually, when the children were 3 and 1, or was it 4 and 2, we moved upstate.
Mm.
And so at first it was okay. We were living with his mom, so that we were grinding basically. Like, I mean, I wasn't. He
Yeah.
was grinding. I was grinding at home.
Yeah, exactly.
um, but then his mom moved out, and we just had the whole place to ourselves and everything. And that's when, like, my, I guess, depression started. I guess,
Mm.
yeah.
Makes
And
sense though.
it was really difficult because I hid it for a really long time.
Why do we do that?
I know, like, it's very strange, but I was I well, what we consider strong, that was what I was back in the day. Like, I would not
Yeah.
cry. Nobody's ever saw me cry.
Mm.
Um I had put up like a really strong emotional block.
Yeah.
And so this is the person that he knew. This person
Mm.
that was like very strong, quote unquote. I wouldn't put quote unquote because I'm still strong.
Right. Yeah. It's a
You
different
know,
type of strength
but
though
this
that we
is a
know now.
different type of strength. Exactly. So I started to kind of open up a little bit more, and it wasn't welcomed as good as I thought it was. Like, I I have a lot of I'm a Scorpio. For people out there, it's a lot of life and death, a lot of rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And I can literally become a whole new person by tomorrow. Like, it can be done. And one thing that happened to me was that I didn't know how to be expressive. Like, it was either I was not saying a word or I was saying way too much.
Yes. Oh my God. That was me.
So it was really difficult because I went from this person that was never talking about emotions, never talking about like their feelings, or never crying, to just breaking down for literally anything.
Yeah.
And so it took him back a little bit. And it's taking him a while to kind of get used to it, because I also had to learn myself that I needed to stop apologizing for being myself. Like,
Oh
this
my
is me.
goodness. Me too.
Like, this is me. That's it. I understand that it's not the person you met, but we have to grow. We have to change.
Yes.
And I understand not every change, like you said, has to be bad. But, we also, like you said, we have a lot of triggers that, okay, if we don't deal with them the first time around, the universe has the funny way of bringing it full circle and putting it in front of your face again. And if
Yep.
you still don't get it, it's going to go around and it's going to be put in your face
Right the
again.
fuck back.
So one of the lessons that I was learning was that I had to be myself. Like, there was no other way. I was going to be miserable being someone else.
Yeah.
And I already had spent so many years being that quote unquote strong person. So when it came my time to like be open and express what I was feeling, I didn't have the courage to do it. I felt like I was letting down so many moms and so many people that looked up to me.
Oh, I get it, girl. I get
So
it
these
100%.
things are actually more recent than they were of me like going into labor or dealing with the
Yeah.
things in our relationship. Like this is way more recent now because I didn't realize that I was holding back so much. You start analyzing, you start doing your shadow work, and you realize that, oh, the reason that I stopped being so feminine is because my mom had to survive, and so she couldn't
Yep.
be feminine. So I
Yep.
learned how to be masculine through my mom, which is not
Yep.
correct.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have anyone as an example of what I thought um a masculine man around me should be like, you know?
Yeah.
So you make a lot of mistakes in life, quote unquote mistakes, because there were lessons that you were learning, but
Absolutely.
you learn to look back and realize that certain things did change you and
Yeah.
certain things made you, forced you to put up a wall, and now you don't need the wall and now you're stuck in there.
Yes. You know what it is?
We're
We're in this survival mode for such a long time. And when you come out and you realize you were in survival mode and now you're just trying to live, that fucking shit of that transition becomes so fucking hard.
it is really it's really hard to bridge it. Like, okay, I know I'm
Yeah.
feeling this. How do I let you know
Yeah.
without, because I was trying to be more vocal. But and this is the funny thing of how like life works, that he's a very like free person. And I'm like that. So I love to give people their freedom. If I love you, I want you to be happy. And
Hmm.
so I'm not or at least I don't think of myself as the type that's like, hey, are you home yet? Or now what I am, I was trying to show that I was caring. So I'll be like, hey, where are you? Are you home yet? Or whatever. And now it's being interpreted on like, yo, you weren't like that. Like, why are you always on top of me right now? Like, what do you think I'm doing? Like, do you not think I'm working?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like now I'm like, no, but why does it bother you that I ask you? Like, and it could
Yeah.
turn into crazy. It hasn't, but I'm saying like if you don't nip that, it can turn into something way worse. Like you said, when it was just a misunderstanding in communication from the beginning. Like, yeah, I honestly just miss you and want to be with you more.
Yeah, because I
Don't even
think
know
you
why I call you 24 times in one day when I never used to call you before. So I now can put myself on his shoes and be like, oh shit, I've changed so much. I have to let him get used to me also.
I think men have a hard time dealing with change when it comes to their partners.
I think so.
I really do because it's like a common thing with most people, in where the husband just has um I don't want to say misinterpretation, but yeah, I guess a misinterpretation of what this change really is.
Yes.
And I think that if men healed themselves more, because it's always like the woman got to heal themselves, right? It's always on the woman, the woman, the woman, the woman, the woman. But it's like, no, once men start opening up and tapping into their true masculine energy, which is going to be more in a state of awareness. And when you're in a state of awareness, um you're in a more place of a better understanding. And
Yeah.
so it stops becoming the personal issue, and it's like, wait a minute, something happened to her and there's a shift happening, and how can I support this person during that shift so that she blossoms into an even greater woman than she was prior to what I knew. And the thing with change that people don't understand is that the process through it is not pretty.
So,
It's not pretty because you have to face yourself. You have to face yourself, and you have to face certain things about yourself that you no longer accept, that you no longer like, that doesn't make you feel good anymore. Like, you know how we say we held it in. I didn't want to hold nothing in no more.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
tired of being that quote unquote strong person.
And holding
No,
on.
bro, I was fucking breaking inside.
Yeah.
How is that strength? Like, I was breaking inside. Strength is me being vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I can't, I'm having a fucking hard time right now. And I need either professional help, I need whatever, but I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? I'm okay, but I'm not okay. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yes, and
And
it's so hard to admit that, you know, especially if you are used to being the person that's seen as like the strongest in the family, you know. It's
yes.
hard to be vulnerable because it's like we had an episode once where mentioned that like we'll tell somebody like, yo, I'm not good, and they'll be like, no, you got it, you good. And that's what
Yes.
you receive back as like the strong person. And it's like, yo, I'm
I
telling you, I'm not
I
like
just
let
fucking
me
told
go.
you I'm not. Like, fuck you.
You just gonna let me drown?
Yeah.
Take my hand, grab it.
So no, it's so true. And I think because, like I said, since we're not taught about our healing journeys in the sense of, you know, when we're younger, like, listen, some things are going to affect you in life, and you're going to find the source to those triggers, and you're going to have to heal those triggers, otherwise you're going to take it on everybody who triggers you. And it's like, when you start getting to the source, what becomes hard is that once you become aware of something, right, and then you're trying to change it, but here's where it gets tricky. Your body remembers. If you study anything about metaphysics, about psychology, about any of that, your body remembers. Meaning, if you're trying to change a specific situation, like a specific trigger, let's say, right? That I'm just going to use a random example. Let's say when you were younger, like, they just yelled and yelled and yelled at you, right? When, let's say now you're having a discussion with your partner, and this person yells at you, right? So now you're triggered, right? But you're aware that this person is not the cause of the trigger. You know what I mean? It's the yelling that's triggering you back to this whatever. So what I say when I say the body remembers is that now you're conscious enough to say, okay, this is not personal. However, because your body remembers, your body is going to mechanically create these
That's
emotions.
chemical reaction.
Yes, it's a chemical reaction. So what's going to happen is you're going to automatically want to respond in the way that protects you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you got to take that moment to say, wait a minute, that's not what I want to do. I want to do something different. But you know how hard that is? You know why it's hard? Because your body already, the chemical reaction already fucking happened. Whatever fucking hormones, whatever shits that get released already came out.
You already got to deal with them.
You already got to deal with them. So that's why it becomes so hard. It's not like that something is wrong with you and you can't change. It's because the change, it becomes more spiritual. It becomes more deeper because now you have to rewire. You have to literally rewire these feelings inside that your body remembers. And I spoke about this briefly before in one of our episodes, but I do this thing where I had to do where in certain situations that would highly trigger me, I had to sit there and keep telling myself, I am safe, I am okay. Because my body was thinking something so small that my life was in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even that serious. But that's how my body was reacting to it because it was triggering something else deeper. So now I have to remind my body that I am okay. My life is not in danger. I am not in danger. And everything is okay. And this person is not trying to hurt me in any way. You know, and that becomes really, really, really hard. And I think meditation, I think, is really, really helpful, at least for me, the more I do it regularly, the more I pretty much regulate to an extent that subconscious mind of mine. And it
Another, oh, sorry. I
no, go ahead.
know that another thing too is like what I have to remind myself is that I'm not my mom.
Yes. Oh,
Like I am not my parents. Because I
yes.
think that, like you said, it's not consciously. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna tell my children exactly what my mom used to say when she was frustrated in front of me, even though it used to make me feel bad. It's not that.
Right.
It's just that it's so programmed. It happened so many times that your body kept the memory, like you said, and the pattern
Yep.
and it held it there. And now it naturally reacts that way.
Yeah.
So when you can remind yourself, like, okay, I know there's an episode where I spoke that I said that was automatically just said something my mom said,
Yes, I remember that.
something I would never say, something that I've never even thought of. Like, I don't think that I had done something so bad in my previous life that I'm paying it back. Like, I would never think, quite the contrary to that. What did I do to deserve everything I got in this life, you know? And
Yes.
so that reminder, like you said, because it's a subconscious programming that could even happen from your partner. Their partner could be subconsciously throwing these things at you. And
Yeah.
so that reminder to, like, you're not other people, or you're not still this person. It's okay to change. Like you said, I'm safe. There's nothing happening here. Like all those things can help so much. I kind of center you again.
Yeah, I like journaling a lot. I think that's helped. And I
Yeah.
think that's for any couple. I think that once you have children, there's a lot there's a lot of confusion sometimes that takes place. And because there's a lot of confusion, I think that even marriage counseling, I think therapy, I think it's really helpful because I know for me, going into therapy, and even certain like couples therapy sessions that we've been on, you know, they've been really eye-opening for myself, and I would assume for him. For example, something like, okay, I had suffered with depression and anxiety and panic attacks for a long time, for many, many years, which I normalized as a child. So I didn't think that that was an issue until I got older, and I was like, all right, this is like really like taking over my life to the point where I can't even be present. Like this is just too much. So I knew something was off. And my husband had like zero knowledge or understanding about mental health, about depression, about all that stuff, because he wasn't even raised in it, like as far as in, in that type of household, which I was, because I watched my mom go through mental health issues and suffer from anxiety and suffer from, depression and all these things. So I was kind of witness to it. And my mom through time got worse. And when it started happening to me as an adult, and he wasn't, really understanding of it, so he was more not in an intentional way but just kind of cold about it, you know what I mean? And
For
how he
all
would
men.
respond to me. Huh?
I would say that all men, because they don't
Yeah.
understand that emotional aspect to us.
No, I think it,
Completely
it it
blind to
makes
that.
him really uncomfortable.
It does. It
It makes
does.
him really uncomfortable. And in one of our sessions, the therapist was breaking down like the brain. So she kind of got science with it, and she was basically like, all right, look, when she gets to this point, this is where her brain is at. It's in this part. And if you react in this way, now you put her into survival mode, because she's not able to respond to you in a conscious understanding way until her brain goes back down to this level. So you have to find a different way to reach her. So you have to be more basically like, I don't want to say gentle, but you just have to find different ways to reach her. And sometimes she was like, she even said like something as simple as, you don't even have to say anything, but be like, can I give you a hug? You know what I mean? And you give this person a hug, and what starts happening is, I believe it's cortisol. I don't know if that's the hormone, that's the thing that releases, but
Sounds great.
I don't know, I could be wrong, but whatever that thing that releases that is like a feel good one, what
Yeah.
that does, it starts bringing the brain now to a different level of consciousness. So once it brings it down to a level of consciousness, I can now I can hear him. But
Mm-hmm.
before, the part where my brain was sitting at, when there's any type of aggression or frustration, now I feel attacked. So now I can't even hear him. Now I'm just in straight survival. I got to protect myself.
Yes.
So now I'm just going to get angry. Now I'm going to respond even more aggressive. Now, you know what I mean? And this is, and it's all, again, you have to understand the psychology of man, the psychology of the brain, of your body. Like, this is so important, because once you gain that understanding, then obviously when it happens again, this other person, now your partner, can say, wait a minute, this person right now is probably in a dark place. So let me not bring her more into the darkness, and let me find a way to bring her to the light so she can see me and she can hear me.
Yes.
And I can help her. And I think it's things like that that were very helpful. I think I know for me, for sure. Because it also helped me understand me.
Yeah.
It helped me realize, okay, I'm not crazy. But a
Yeah.
chemical reaction just happened, and now I have to get a new chemical reaction to come into play so that I can come back to present. And I think that men have a really hard time with that, because for the most part, men are not taught to express themselves. If there's anybody that is really programmed to hold things in, it's men. And that's why when we get to that point of survival, we start to hold things in, because that's like, I wouldn't say it's a program masculine energy, honestly, you know. But that's it's that thing where we go into protection and all these things like that. And for us, I think we're the ones that teach men how to be vulnerable, how to communicate, and all these things. And because society doesn't want them to express themselves, it's all shown as a sign of weakness. It's as if, like, no, you're supposed to just provide and shut up, type of thing. Don't complain, don't whatever, just go make the money and serve your household in that way. And I think it's deeper than that. And I think that's why most marriages, you have these statistics where once the child comes, they're breaking apart, because now it's natural to me for a parent, I think for men even more now, I think they're starting to tap into a side where they want to be more than just a provider.
Yes. Because
You
they
know,
all
like,
have to then
they want to be
provide.
involved.
Yes. And you know what's crazy? That men cannot understand, or for the most part, like regular, the ones, raised by the society cannot understand, because men are taught, like, bro, you gotta go work, you gotta go work. There ain't no time for you to cry about it, for you to be
Mm-hmm.
crying. Like, you just gotta pick it up and get to work. So for them to see a woman like break down, it's like, yo, what happened to you? Like, ain't nobody dying.
Yeah.
Like, get your ass up and get to work. Like, that's what you do. And it's not that they want to do that, I don't think. I think it's
No.
just that society has molded them into those types of beings, where now they come off as cold-hearted, because they just honestly can't even understand why you're crying. And
Yeah.
even crazier than that is that usually the man that gets uncomfortable with the crying usually has a mom who gets uncomfortable with the crying. So they learn masculine energy from their
Yes.
mothers.
Yes.
So it's not, because that's the thing too, that while my mom had me and she was a single mother, and I learned masculine from her, men who have single mothers, their dynamic is a little different.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it sounds weird, but like to them, it's like their mom is their mom and their dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they only learn the messed up masculine that their mother has had to carry, because she's just trying to survive.
Yep.
They don't get to meet the balanced
No.
feminine and masculine. You know what I'm saying? So to see a woman balancing herself, and because let's we can speak about this with anybody. If have you ever complained to a man? They just want to solve it. They don't even get what was the point of the conversation. Because for
Yep.
us, like we just want to have the conversation and that's it. Like we're
Yes.
good. But them, we leave them stressed because they be trying to solve the issue for you, trying to
Yes.
figure out why it happened to you, how we can prevent the issue. Like, men honestly are, they're not cold-hearted. They love you, but the ways they express it is not the ways we receive it, I believe.
It's so true.
Because
It's
you'll be like,
so
if because I'll be done. Like once I have the conversation, I'm like, yo, and this person was being mad, and I'm like, I'm done. That's it. I let it out and I'm healed.
yeah.
And now I've just dropped all of that on them. And now they'll spend that, like, it'll, oh, 3 days will pass by and he'll be like, man, I'm still trying to solve the issue for you. And you're like, what? What issue? So
Yes.
we're weird creatures to men. We are.
No, I totally agree with that. Oh my goodness. It's crazy because, I think especially like you said, when you have single mothers raising sons, I think what starts to happen is that they get painted this picture of this false strength that their mother has. And this is not to say their mother is not strong. But when I say false strength, I mean society's version of strength, right? Which is we don't talk about it, we don't cry about it, we just keep pushing and we work and we do what we got to do for our kids. And all that is great. But you can't tell me that a single mother that is doing this day and night, when her natural like in feeling inside is to be with her children, right? There's something about when you have children that you just like, I noticed this with so many people after they have children. You have this thing where you're like, I don't want to work that much for, I want to be with my children. I want to be a part of everything, right? You just have this gravitation towards that. So I think the frustration in the single mother is that they can't do that they have to do it by themselves because their partner is not there with them, helping them out. So now they're looking at this mom and it's like, oh, my mom was so strong. She never cried. She never did this. She never folded, blah, 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 blah. She just kept pushing. But the truth is that mother was also suffering. But she wasn't going to show that to her children because that's what mothers do, right? They protect their children. So they don't show it to their children. So now when you have us women that are coming truly into our femininity, and that does not mean, let me be clear, that now you feel great showing your tetas and your ass all over the place. That's not femininity. That's not fucking tapping into your feminine side, honey. This is a whole nother thing we're talking about that's on a deeper, more spiritual level.
Yes, that other stuff you were talking about, you need some deep shadow work.
Yeah, that's some other shit, boo-boo. So when I say, well, now that us that are truly, truly tapping into our feminine side, what is happening? We are now opening up. We are not staying quiet no more. We are no longer saying, I am okay when I'm not okay. We are crying. We are saying, I need help. I can't do this. I don't like this. I don't want this. So to me, especially with men that are raised by single mothers, that becomes like, whoa, what is happening here? Because they don't know that. They don't know that side because their mother couldn't do that. They didn't have the awareness. They didn't have the guidance to say, bro, it's okay. Like, this is not okay. This is not normal, but yes, you're doing a great job in this abnormal circumstance, but it's okay to have your moments. It's okay to say you can't do this. It's okay to not be quote unquote strong as society wants you to be strong. So that I think causes a big conflict in a lot of relationships because a lot of us women now are tapping into our healing. I was just speaking of this with Greg about there's a shift happening, and some people may take it as like a cool thing to do you
Yeah, like
know,
a
like they think the shit is cute, you know? But the people that really are diving into this, and there's a lot of people that are diving into their, you know, their inner wounded child, that going into shadow work, that are really, really, really diving into this healing on a whole nother level because they want better. They want to feel better. They want to know, you know, they want to uh, control this experience in a different way and have a different reality. When you go deep into this, that's when it's kind of like, those are the women to me that are going to change the future. Those are the men to me that are going to change the future. Those are the parents to me that are going to shift the future with our children, because now we're also consciously parenting.
Mhm.
We're showing our children that it is okay to be vulnerable. We're showing our children to know how to understand their emotions and how to dissect, you know, how they express their emotions and what it really means. We're not being told to suppress them. And our parents, that last generation of parents, made a lot of us suppress our emotions because they didn't have time for theirs. It's like, I ain't got time for yours either.
Yeah.
Like, I got too much shit going on. I ain't got time for your shit. You better shut up and keep it moving. So we got programmed into that. But now that we're tapping into our true feminine, our true healing, we're saying, yo, that shit wasn't right. And I'm not going to do that with my child. And I'm not going to do that in my marriage. I'm not going to do that with my partner. Like, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to pretend everything is okay. We're not going to ignore the red flags that are happening here. We're not going to ignore the disconnect that is happening here. So how do we get back to us? We got to get back to ourselves. You got to get back to yourself. You got to understand yourself. And these are individual journeys that the male is going to go through, and then the female is going to go through. And in that process, I think you have to support each other in a way where, like I said, you're not taking things personal. You're understanding that everybody has an individual programming, everybody has an individual journey, everybody has different triggers. And the more that we tap into ourselves, the more we understand ourselves, I think the more better we can be as partners in the transition of bringing children into this world. Because now we can also parent on a more like on the same page.
Yeah. And now we can actually build.
We can build. We can fucking build.
It's
Yes.
also like coming full circle also because like how one of the things we mentioned is like what our parents used to do and how our generation grew up. It's like you just leave people. Like
Yep.
you just leave.
Yeah.
Everybody discovered they could be single. So now everybody's like, oh, we could leave. All right, we're all out of here.
We out. Yeah.
And what we don't realize is a lot of these of our partners, they trigger things in us too for growth, the same way
Yeah.
children do. So if you're not taking these lessons and kind of getting through them because they're too hard and you give up, that lesson again is going to come full circle again through another relationship or another situation. So it's
Yep.
like very important also to know, like, obviously, if you're, you know, in a abusive relationship or when things are like beyond the point of fixing,
Yeah.
that's different. But if you have a chance with your partner, you should definitely try because again, those lessons just keep coming around and you might as well get them out of the way and live your life happy.
I agree. And I'm a firm believer that I think that children should be raised with both of their parents
Of
living in the
course.
same household.
Hmm.
You know, I really strive for that. That's, you know, my goal. So I feel like if there's things that can be worked out, as long as both are on an understanding that both have to do work, because any problem that comes, it just, most of the time, you know, it's not just one person, because we have to also understand the other person is also a receiver of this. So that means that that person, let's say something negative, whatever, I'm just saying, the receiver of it also has some healing to do on why they chose to receive that,
Exactly. Yes.
or why they chose to react that way to this person, right? So the person doing the hurting or not doing the hurting, whatever the case is, in any way, as long as it's not obviously life threatening
Yeah.
like that, you know, there has to be a conscious effort that both need to put in some work to get on the same page and make this work. And it takes work. Like, you know, when people say marriage takes work and all that, it takes work. And, you know, marriage at the end of the day, and, you know, we've mentioned this before, marriage in the sense of the state or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. It's really just a business, right? It really is. And we don't go into marriage in that mindset, right? We go into marriage and children on an emotional level. And because we don't understand as a business, we don't understand it. And you mentioned this before about your children before used to be assets, not liabilities, you know? And when you understand what marriage truly is and what children are, and that's not to say you don't have an emotional attachment to it. I'm just saying the greater picture of it. We understand that we have to build this empire. We have to build this business, and the children are the future that are going to continue this.
And it actually gives you even more attachment because now it's eternal.
Yes,
That's what people
yes,
don't understand.
yes.
Yes.
It makes everything that much more important. It makes everything that much more meaningful. It's not just let's just do this to do this. Like, no, there's an actual bigger picture here. There's an actual bigger plan here. And we can shift a few generations with just what we do, you know? And I don't think nobody's going into it like that. I think we're just unconsciously going into this world without true knowledge of what this really is about. And even just in general, even people that don't have children, and with the way the divorce rate is and all these things, is because we're not consciously going into these things understanding what they truly are. So we're just like doing it to do it. Like, people will spend money on huge weddings just because to them that's like something super important. I'm not saying it's not beautiful, but
Or
that
that it's
is,
not important,
it's not,
but
yeah, it's not that's not
different
important,
importance.
but that will not define your marriage in the sense of loyalty, trust, respect, commitment. That big wedding will not define that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience throughout your relationship that will define that. It's how do you deal with the changes of life? How do you deal with the changes of your partner? Because I'm clearly, if we met at 23 and now I'm 41, he's 40, 42, we are not the same people. It's impossible to be the same people. So there has to have been changes in general. Even when we moved to California, that was a change. That was a change for me. That was a change for him. Like, now I couldn't just go to my friend's house. I can just go to my dad's house. These are things that I had my whole life that I couldn't do no more. So we both had a shift within ourselves. And then when we had the babies, we had a shift. When you become parents, you have a shift. So you have to find a partner that within all these changes, you're not going to grow the same, because everybody has their time of when they grow in certain things, but you have to be on a path of just growth and elevation, period. Whichever way he's doing it, whichever way you're doing it, as long as you both are on a path of elevation, a path of growth, a path of understanding, a path of healing, then you both can still ride with the wave together in sync.
Yes.
As different individuals.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So, I think my best advice would be for men and women, for people who don't have children, do as much healing as you can.
For sure.
If
You don't
there's
want to do the
any,
healing with the children.
you know, if it gotta be done like that, okay. But
You
if
could do
you,
it, but
yeah,
it's much
if
harder.
if you can tap into that prior, if there's some kinks in that relationship that need to be, you know, fixed, don't be afraid to go and get counseling and marriage counseling or couples therapy. I think we always saw that, I know I did, as something bad. And it shouldn't be looked at as something bad, because I saw this thing today that I loved. And Kerry Washington was saying something about somebody because she was saying how she's been in therapy all her life. and somebody basically asked her, like, isn't that a bad thing? You know, like, basically, like, why is she still in it? And she made such a great point, and she said, the same way we have like a trainer that works out our body, to her therapist is the person that works out her brain, basically, you know what I mean, her psychology. So throughout the different changes in life, she has like this guidance and this understanding, because this person obviously helps them, because they go on a deeper level psychologically, if you have the right therapist, of course, you know. So I think that that also comes into play when it comes to marriage counseling and all these things. I don't think that they should be seen as a negative thing. I think it should be seen as a great thing, that you're both able to be that vulnerable to say, you know what, let's see what this can do for us. It may work, it may not work, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? But to gain a better understanding of yourself, sometimes these people can give you a very different perspective, and that can allow you a better way to deal with when these little roller coasters come up of life with children. And if you have children already and you're going through a rough time, whether, you know, in the marriage, for whatever reason, I think that that's another sign that if you guys can't do it together, as far as in fix whatever the root of the issue is, then to seek outside help to do that. Because the more you do that, the more you're helping your children at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The more you're showing them how a couple and a marriage works, and how they you know, have their conflict resolution, how they communicate. This will all make it much better for you, in terms of what you expose your children to, because things can get really crazy when you have children where you guys are just at it and your children are witness to that. And that becomes just more toxic the more we just let that just be.
Behaviors.
Yeah. So I think that's super important. I also think, like I said, healing individually, supporting each other in each individual healing. I think we should have grace and compassion for each other, in understanding that most of our quote unquote flaws are just little wounded childs that wanted a specific type of attention, that wanted a specific type of love that they couldn't get. And now we seek that in our partners as a way to compensate for that. And when they don't, you know, come to those expectations that the partner wanted, then it causes conflict. So I think before we wrap up, that's my best advice. What do you think, Tanisha?
Well, I also think that finding ways to kind of therapy yourself is really important also.
Yes. Oof,
So
yes.
one thing that I noticed about Amari and I is that when we go on a long car ride, since I told you we move upstate, so we're basically 4 hours away. And these long rides are literally therapy. Like not every time, obviously, but once I became aware of what they were, I was way more conscious about having them. You know, it's like one of those places where I guess he's in a natural state and he's more open to have a conversation about life.
Yes.
So I feel like if you can find little things like that, because it's also a great example to your children to catch them having conversations about life. So it's not a fear that they have in the future. Catching
Yes.
people kind of like breaking down their feelings and, you know, I wouldn't say like obviously fighting in front of your children is not okay, but if they happen to catch any type of like disagreement or argument, make sure that they watch the repair. Like
Oh,
make sure that
yes.
they watch how you guys fix that and go back to normal.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
think little things like that are kind of what's been holding me together more than anything else. And changing my perspective on a lot of things too, because
Yes.
we grow up with these perspectives like, oh, um I want flowers, or you like just little
Yeah.
things that we don't realize like sometimes are not like true or they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like not that Side note, not that your husband shouldn't buy you flowers.
No, but yeah, I get
You
it though.
want
It's
flowers,
like,
get your flowers. I'm just speaking, I just use the flowers as an example, but
but we'll
you
think like this
know,
person is like trying to hurt and be mean to you because they're not providing what you asked for. And it's like, that's not even the case.
exactly. So, and also just always giving the person the benefit of the doubt. You know, like I ask a lot of questions. That's how I am. So it's like if I suspect of something that maybe I didn't like, hey, did you do this? No, okay. That's it. I just asked. I didn't make up a scenario in my head. I didn't, and I feel like those little things can help a lot.
I agree. I definitely agree 100%. Like I said, I think a lot of us want that two family household. I think I see it coming back a lot more than, what it was before. I think there was a bigger rate of single parents back in the days. And then there is now. I see a lot of families now, number one, having multiple children, more than one or two, which I love. And I also see, the mommy and daddy at home. And I think that's great. And I know that, things can get, like I said, a little rocky at times, but if you really want to, hold on to that dynamic, you both have to put in work and you both have to want to do the work if you want to stay committed. And in time, I think you find that strength and all that. But it comes with, it comes with a little roller coaster real quick. It's not going to be a smooth ride, the transition. Don't be afraid of change. I think change is a great thing as long as we learn to embrace it. And also learn to embrace this new person that this person is going to become, because there is going to be a new woman and a new man that's going to emerge from this experience. And it's probably going to be, trust me, way better than the younger version, because this person now is older, has more experience, and is way more wiser now. And because of that, they become a better, obviously, individual, a better version of themselves. So know that the process for your partner to get to that point may be a little foggy and maybe friction in that process, but the outcome, I think, is well worth it. If you stick around, you support each other, you have grace with each other, you have compassion with each other, you have understanding, and you have healing so that you can communicate properly.
And none of that 50-50 crap. It's 100-100, period.
Exactly. Give it your fucking all. Give it your all. And I definitely think that you can make it work. That is all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. I definitely enjoyed it. All these things are just super therapeutic for me to talk about. So I love that. And I hope that it is for other families and women and dads out there. And that is it. Thank you for tuning in to Mommy Mondays. Catch us next Monday with an all new episode. And that's about it. Peace out, y'all. Good luck.